This is the first 1991-92 NBA Hoops card we're looking at. And like we've done with other cards since it's the first, I'm going to talk about the set a little bit in general. I know you're probably thinking the last thing I want to hear is some information on 91-92 Hoops. But I promise if you stick with me, there'll be at least a couple of tidbits of information that you haven't heard before in this video. And at least one of them being about this card specifically. Plus, I tried to pick a card from the set to really give you a good photo to look at. It's tough to beat this photo, it really is. 91-92 Hoops, this was their third set in a row. And if you collected the early 90s, you instantly recognized this set. Because for Hoops' first two sets, the border around the photo, it was shaped like a basketball court key. But then in 91-92, Hoops changed this to a rectangular border, and that allowed more space for the photo. Now, this was still the era of junk wax and overproduction. Just over 1 million of these sets were produced. And with 590 cards in the set, collectors sure had a lot of 91-92 Hoops lying around in shoe boxes, closets, everywhere else. There were many small subsets, giving collectors a lot of surprises and opportunities to find their favorite players, until they realized that these were overproduced too, and the cards really didn't retain their value. But the number of subsets, it made things a little bit chaotic and overwhelming. You had very small subsets, like Inside Stuff, Milestones, NBA Yearbook, Active Leaders, Stay in School. Then you had the larger subsets, like Supreme Court, the art cards, and the USA Olympic team cards. Then there was a gold USA basketball card in packs. That wasn't numbered. And if that still wasn't enough, you had some send-away cards. There was a James Naismith, a basketball centennial quiz card. And then there was a head of the class card. That was numbered to 10,000. So there was this sheer, overwhelming quantity of cards, but that was part of the strategy. Now, we've looked at this situation before, but if you turn over a lot of Hoops and Skybox cards from this time period, you look at the copyright down here, NBA Properties, Inc. So the league itself had a hand in the Hoops and Skybox cards. I found an article that you really are going to want to read from Vice News. I'm going to put a link in the description. This article gives great insight into the thinking behind these overproduced sets from the early 90s. There's a quote from a Scott McCauley. He was the vice president of marketing at Skybox International at the time of these cards. He mentions in that article that they viewed these cards as an inexpensive gateway to watching games and buying merchandise. So think of it from the league's perspective, working with the marketers of these companies. To them, the more cards, the more potential interaction with different aspects of the game. It was really that simple. It starts to reveal why there's just so many from this time period. Now, this card specifically, part of the All-Star subset, as we said at the beginning, it's a great photo. The photo is so exciting. It was actually featured. It's smaller and on the right side of the cover. This was November 1991, Sports Card Trader magazine. This card was featured there. Really neat card. I mean, who shows this kind of intensity during an all-star game? This was an era of competition that, yeah, I really miss. Then the ball crossing over the blue border after the dunk, I just think that's a great touch. And it's a nice chance to have a card with Jordan in his 1991 All-Star Game jersey. The back is very simple. It's basically just his All-Star statistics. There's the game featured on the front, 26 points. In that game, those 26 points, that did lead the East. Those 26 right there. So, yeah, no reason to linger. Not too much more to say. Collectors today, they tend to ignore this set, but to me, with all those cards and knowing how they were thinking about luring people into the league. And, this is before you could take out your cell phone, learn all about the NBA. This was a way to interact. So the importance of these cards in the history of basketball cards, I just don't think that can be overstated. Think about this. Compare 90-91 Fleer to the 91-92 Hoops and Skybox. These are just two different worlds. These cards, they just broke open a Pandora's box of exploring and creativity. And yeah, it's chaotic and a little bit too much today. But after the introduction of these cards, see, now companies had free reign to just explore and create. Oh, thanks for listening. Bye-bye.